Well, let's introduce a mate of mine. This is Sis. Sis is a 15-year-old quarter-horse mare. I've never worked with Sis before, and we're going to use her in the groundwork demonstrations today. Her owner has told me that Sis has a tendency to kind of get spooky and jumpy, and especially when she gets scared, she has a tendency to crowd your space and jump on top of you, and that's very common with a lot of horses that are spooky and jumpy. It's also just as common with a disrespectful kind of pushy horse that may be pretty quiet, but they're always trying to push into your space and jump on top of you. And we've already explained why it's so important to get your horse's respect for a safety standpoint. Now, the tools that we're going to use in these demonstrations initially is going to be my halter and lead rope, okay? The halter is made out of rope, which is not that uncommon around the country, but my rope is a little bit stiffer. It's a thinner diameter and it has a stiffer core. The stiffer the core, basically the rope has a little bit more bite to it, so that when a horse leans on it and chooses to try and pull against it, it makes them feel a little bit more uncomfortable for doing the wrong thing. Remember, you make the right thing easy, the wrong thing uncomfortable. The halter also has two knots here on the nose band, and what these knots do is they work off the pressure points of the horse's nose. Like if I squeeze these knots right now, see how she wants to back away from that? Running down the front of your horse's face is different pressure points, and what I do is I use those knots to work off the pressure points, especially with a horse that's wanting to be kind of pushy and want to drag me around. The lead rope is 14 feet long. I like 14 feet because it gives me enough length to get away from a horse that might be trying to kick at me or rear up in the air or do something really disrespectful, but it's not so much rope that I'm dragging around 40 foot of rope. It has a quick release snap on it, okay? It's stainless steel and it's quick release, so you can just turn it and it comes undone. The stick that I'm using, I like to refer to this as my handy stick. Basically, the handy stick is just an extension of my arm. The stick is 4 feet long, it has a rubber handle, and it has a 6-foot string. Now, basically, when I stretch that out, it makes the stick and string 10 feet long. So that in combination with my arm, it gives me a lot more reach. So the stick and string is just an extension of my arm. I'll use this to sensitize the horse, drive the horse out of my personal hula hoop space, and I'll also use this to desensitize the horse to objects that move and make a noise. So you'll see throughout the video series, the stick really comes in an advantage in doing a lot of these groundwork exercises. You might have a question, can you use a buggy whip? You could use a buggy whip if you wanted to. The negative with using a buggy whip is that usually they're way too long and they're really flimsy. They got a lot of bend and whip to them, and it's hard to control the end of it when they shake so much, if they got so much flexibility to them. The other reason why I don't like buggy whips is usually they don't last very long. As soon as the horse steps on them, they break in half, and the handy stick is pretty sturdy. They're not going to break it. So before I get started with her, I just want to talk about something that is very important to me, especially with a new horse. We've already explained the importance of establishing a hula hoop to get the horse out of your personal space. And remember, that's personal space is this. If I draw a line around me like this, half a circle, then I do half a circle here, okay? I don't want any part of her body inside of that hula hoop. And you can actually see then, this mare was pretty sensitive then. When I brought that stick around, she stepped back out of that space. That's great, that's what I'm looking for. I see a lot of people, especially with a horse that doesn't want to stand still, they have trouble getting it to stand still because what they're trying to do is they'll lead the horse around like this. They'll grab it here up under the snap. And if the horse is nervous or worried, they'll sit here and they'll whisper to him and rub and it's all right, precious. And the more you hang on to your horse up under here, usually the more nervous they get and the more they want to walk around you. If I've got a horse that does not want to stand still, the last thing I want to do is try and make him stand still. So what I'll do is try and make it uncomfortable for him to crowd my space. So I'll wiggle that rope, I'll wave that stick, and I'll keep that horse out of my personal hula hoop space. So if they come into it, I'll wiggle it, wave that stick, and keep them out there like that. Now, of course, with a horse that's a lot more duller and disrespectful than what she is, I may have to really swing that stick and whack her on the chest pretty firm. Remember, you do what you have to do to get the job done. You do it as easy as possible, but as firm as necessary. So see how that mare came too close again? I'm going to suggest that she gets backwards, and she gets backwards. So that's great. Notice as soon as I did that, she started licking her lips. You'll see a huge difference in a horse if you keep him outside of that hula hoop when you first come into contact with him. I'm telling her, unless I say come into it, don't come into it. Now, if she wants to still move around in a circle, she can move around, but she has to look at me the entire time. So let's say your horse is nervous and doesn't want to stand still. You take him to a horse show or you go away from home and he doesn't want to stand still. Simply establish your perimeter of your hula hoop, and not one part of your horse's body can touch the end of that stick, okay? If she can touch that stick, she's too close, so I'll make her get out of my space a little bit more like that. Establish your hula hoop and then just stand still. And as soon as she takes those eyes off you, bump those eyes back and keep two eyes on you and establish that hula hoop. you'll find that after, just a couple of minutes of doing that, most horses that are pretty nervous and want to walk around, they'll start to stand still, drop their head and lick their lips and relax, because they realize that they can't crowd on top of you. And not only that, just the mere fact that you'll stop grabbing them like this has already stopped making them feel what? Trapped and claustrophobic. Remember, horses are a prey animal, so when you trap them or make them feel like they're caught in something, it has a tendency to make them feel panicked and claustrophobic. So immediately by letting that go, you're going to get rid of a lot of that feeling to begin with. Now here's a few tips about the halter. When you're adjusting the halter, when you do your groundwork, have it sit just a little bit lower on the horse's nose here. I don't want it on the soft part of their nose where it interferes with their breathing, but I want it to kind of where the soft part, about an inch above that, where it starts to join into the bony part of their nose, on the bridge of their nose, right here. The lower it is on their nose, the better leverage you'll get from side to side. Now, when I tie them up, however, it's the opposite. I want to get the halter nice and secure up under here, under her jaw, and right up here, up under her eye a little bit further. That way, if she would happen to pull back, this halter is not going to slip off her ears. She's kind of half goofy there anyway. So see how this mare doesn't like anything touching her up here? So I tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to approach like now. I'm going to wait till she relaxes. And we're just going to use this. Every time I find this, the more I work with this mare, I'm kind of finding goofier things with her that we need to fix. So she doesn't like that, so I just rub her here. There, and see how she relaxed her head, and I'll retreat. Go and do it again. Rub her here, and she relaxes, retreat. Rub her here. When she relaxes, retreat. But anyway, I want it up nice and high here so that if she did pull back, there's no way this is going to pull over her ears. However, when you do your groundwork, you want it down lower, because when it's up high like that, it's a lot easier for the horse to kind of drag you around and pull on you more. So that's kind of some tips on where I want the halter. Now, as far as tying the halter, each halter comes with its own little instructions anyway, but I'll show you here. You go through your loop like so, from inside to out. And what you do is you go around the loop and through. A lot of people go over the top of the loop like this, over the top and through like that. Always say to yourself, go around the loop and then pull it backwards towards their tail. So it's always facing back like that. If you go over the top, it'll still work, but it has a tendency to slip a lot more. Go around the loop and through the hole that you just created and pull it up. If they do happen to pull back and it tightens up, all you have to do is get this top part and kind of wiggle it and push it back, and it loosens up pretty quickly.